Officer Nick Soley, Bloomfield Township Community Relations Officer. So I'm the one that annoys you with all my emails to come out. And I really appreciate everyone coming out today. I know that MADD really appreciates everyone being here, so we can kick off Tie One On for Safety. So to all of our officers, the prosecutor's office, and to all of our MADD victims and representatives, we do appreciate you being here. I'll keep my remarks short, and I will introduce Taylor. Taylor is from MADD, and she's going to speak to us. And then we'll hear from a few others, and I believe Prosecutor McDonald is going to speak today, and we'll get out on the track and have a little bit of fun and get those ribbons tied on. So thank you.
I first want to open my speech by thanking a couple people. First, I want to thank MADD for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak here today again for the second year. My family, who's not here at the moment, but for encouraging me in everything that it is that I do, whether that's traveling with me to different MADD events, or just a simple reminder of, you got this, kid, as I'm walking out the door. Lastly, I want to thank all of the officers in this room for all of the hard work that you do each and every day. All of the days that are spent away from your families, the calls that make you question whether or not you're going to see them again. Just everything that you do to protect our communities and our roadways does not go without notice, not from me. You are the first people to arrive on the scene, and often the first and last person that many of our loved ones get to speak to. You've held their hand, hugged them, and probably have even prayed with them in their final moments on this earth. You've been forced to make those dreadful home visits in the middle of the night, delivered news that no parent, spouse, or family member ever wants to hear. You've held broken parents, spouses, and maybe even children as they've cried, and it takes a lot of courage and strength to do what each and every one of you do every single day. So I applaud you for what you do, and let me just say this again, thank you. My name is Taylor Greason, and I've been volunteering as a victim impact speaker for MADD for a little over 3 years now. I speak in Howell, East Lansing, and Novi to court-ordered DUI and OWI offenders. Most recently, over the summer, I have traveled out of the state of Michigan to the state of Kentucky to speak in Louisville and Elizabethtown. And over the course of me speaking, I have found that it doesn't get easier telling my story. It gets harder, and it's harder because every podium that I stand at is another podium that I am reminded that my loved ones are never coming home. Outside of my work with MADD, I am a senior at Michigan State University studying political science and pre-law with a minor in law, justice, and public policy. I am expected to graduate this December with 2 degrees, which I am very excited for. And many of you here had responded to the terrible act of violence at my school just 9 months ago. And I want to thank you for those heroic actions that night. I know how hard that call has made my life as a student, and I can't even imagine how much harder it made yours. So on behalf of me and my fellow classmates, thank you. My story is rather unique, as my family has fallen victim to someone else's poor choices 3 times. My great-grandma Helen was murdered at the age of 24 years old in 1941, just 2 years older than what I am right now, and just 4 months after giving birth to her youngest son, Eugene, by the hands of a drunk driver. Her eldest son, Amos, known as my grandpa, didn't speak much of Helen, as he didn't have very much to speak about due to her being killed when he was just 4 years old. But during the time that he did speak of her, his eyes would swell up in tears. Instead of growing up with his mom, he grew up visiting a cemetery. He spent an additional 78 years on this earth without knowing his mother, and she had missed out on all of his milestones, including his high school graduation, sending him off to fight for this country, watching him fall in love and have 2 kids. She missed everything because of one man's decision. I have no doubt in my mind that when my grandpa gained his wings in July of 2021, Helen was waiting for him at the gates of heaven with open arms. And I can only hope that the 2 of them are cheering me on from heaven as I continue to fight for the day that we will see no more victims to this 100% preventable crime. As noted earlier, Helen is not the sole reason I joined forces with MADD in April of 2021. A man who I called Grandpa Marty for a short time of my life was murdered by a 4-time DUI offender on December 2nd of 2005. In just a short couple of days, it will mark 19 years since I received a hug from my grandpa, heard a random story, shared a laugh with him, and told him that I loved him. Martin Stott was hit from behind while walking back to his van on a job site in Ionia, Michigan, and he was the person that you would see holding stop and slow signs in construction zones. His killer fled the scene and attempted to buy more alcohol just a few miles up the road, as if what he had to drink at his family's bar prior to this incident was not enough for him. Marty's killer was looking at 22 years in Ionia State Prison for charges unrelated to the brutal killing of Martin Stott, but only served 8 years and 11 months and was released back to the world in October 2018 for good behavior. It is safe to say that 5-year-old me at the time of Marty's death had no idea what was going on. I would question my parents why my time was no longer being spent at Grandma and Grandpa's almost daily. I was confused because the month of December is supposed to be a month full of joy, and it was a month full of sadness. I was supposed to be creating Christmas traditions with my grandparents, and stories were supposed to be read. But now, as I said, it is a month full of sadness where no Christmas traditions were created with them and no stories were read. I'll never know what life could have been like if December 2nd never happened. Growing up, I was told Jesus needed my grandpa's help building roads in heaven when I would ask my parents, where was Grandpa Marty? That was the only thing that they could answer to me, because how do you explain to a 5-year-old that a bad man got behind the wheel and ran over her grandfather, leaving him dead on the side of the road like he was just some deer running into traffic? More importantly, how do you tell her that this was not the first time this bad man had done something like this? That our family was not the first person or the first family he had hurt by his selfish choices? Little did that precious 5-year-old girl know that 10 years later, Jesus would need the help from someone she grew up calling Uncle Jason for 14 years of her life, of which you can see right here. Jason Vetcher was 26 years old when he was killed on Valentine's Day in 2015 by a wrong-way drunk driver on US 127, just a mile and a half away from Jolly Road exit 11 in Lansing. Jason had lived right across the street from my family since I was born in August of 2000, and one of his first jobs was working with my dad shoveling snow. He would babysit me and my sister when it was just 2 of us rather than 4, pulled pranks on us and with us, stole all of our Jolly Rancher candy on Halloween night after we ditched our candy by the fire because of the ghost story he told us that scared us out of our mind. The list goes on. It didn't matter that our DNA did not 100% match. He was and still someone I look at as my uncle. Jason was often called Mr. Do-It-All because he truly did it all. Graphic design, photography, party promoting, screen printing, just to name a few things. He was also someone who would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. You needed a ride somewhere, Jason would drive. You needed someone to babysit for an hour or 2, Jason would babysit at the cost of being allowed to throw water balloons at your kids when they pranked him. He had one of the biggest and softest hearts that someone could have, which is what makes his death hurt even more, as he was killed on a day of love. Valentine's Day is no longer a celebrated holiday in my household. We don't decorate, as decorations are a trigger for painful memories of what that date holds, and when we walk into a store and see Valentine's Day cards, we're reminded of what one man took from the world. Jason would have done amazing things for this world, for our Lansing community, and I am still angry that he will never have the chance to prove that because of one man's decision to get behind the wheel drunk. A little over a year ago, my 7-year-old sister asked me about the man whose photo sat in the fireplace in the living room. I responded to her with, Uncle Jason. You never got to meet him. She was quick to respond back with, why? And it was in that moment that I understood the feelings that my parents must have felt when I asked them where my Grandpa Marty was just days after he had been killed. Except it was me this time telling my 7-year-old sister something that her brain couldn't comprehend in the way that mine did years after Jason's life had ended. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't tell her that someone had gotten behind the wheel drunk and killed him. She was just 7 years old. Eventually, I managed to say before one night, a man made a really stupid decision, and that decision caused Jason to go to heaven. And it was at that moment that I walked away to avoid her seeing me cry, something that my mom had done many times before. I hold in my hand one very important object, and that is my cell phone. Like many of us, we don't go anywhere without it. It's our lifeline. I mean, it's my lifeline. This phone can single-handedly save thousands of lives by the click of a button. And in a world where technology has advanced and taken over many things, there is no reason why that this object should not be used to call for a ride home. And I wholeheartedly believe that if you have the funds to party with your friends, then you have the funds to call for a ride home. Calling someone to get you is far cheaper than the cost of a funeral or your court fees, as the average first UI offense is between $8,000 to $12,000. Is a $6 drink really worth that price? Is it worth potentially taking your life or the life of someone else? The answer is no. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is worth putting a family through the pains millions of families, including mine, have been put through because of one wrong decision. I will leave you all with the same message I tell my friends. I don't care what time it is, what bar or whose house that you're at. Call me and I will come get you. I'd rather lose sleep making sure that you got home than have to hear your eulogy be read, or have to hear the unforgettable screams from your mother wanting her baby back. Nothing is worth putting your friends and family through this, because one night of fun is not worth a lifetime of trauma. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Brooke Allen. I know a lot of you. I see you every year at different events that I've emceed when I was with WWJ. I'm putting my coffee cup there for a reason. Yes, it does have my gum on the back of it. As you know, I suffered a loss from a drunk driving crash back in 2004. My husband, George, was killed by a 19-year-old who was out partying with his friends, like Taylor had mentioned. They sometimes do. It was his second offense. And he killed George, and he killed another person in the car. And of course, he was unscathed. We had an 11-year-old daughter at the time, and there was a mix-up as far as where she was. And when the crash happened, it was a lot going on between July 7th and July 8th. And I kept calling him because I was mad that he wasn't showing up to meet me for coffee. So I kept, calling and calling, and you don't want to be stood up by your husband, right? And so it made no sense to me. So I kept calling and calling, and then finally somebody called me and said, "You need to get home." And Natalie, our daughter, had called and said, Daddy's not here. Where's Daddy? And so then things started kind of unraveling, and as I sat at that Starbucks waiting for him to show up, and then he never showed up, and then the sheriffs showed up, and then everything kind of happened at once. But I had to tell my 11-year-old daughter that her dad was dead, and the first thing she said was, "Who's gonna walk me down the aisle?" And at 11 years old, for that to be your first thought, because it just shows you how much dads are important, right? How every family member out there, whether it be a cousin, a grandfather, an uncle, whoever it is, and when they're snatched away from you like that, it's more than heartbreaking. It changes your lives. It changed Natalie's life for sure. I will tell you that she has never walked down the aisle. I am sure she never will, honestly, because her dad's not there to walk her down it. So one thing that I've never shared is that after everything was done and the funeral had happened, I went to the cemetery every day with 2 cups of coffee. And I would sit there and I would talk to him, and I did that for about a year. Because there was so much that happened and so much that changed, and I wanted him to know, and it made me feel better to be where he was. So as a member of the media, you've heard me say it a million times, we cover the stories. You guys, you're all on the front lines. You cover it, and you cover it with blood, and you cover it with tears. And we'll always be grateful for that. So from the bottom of my heart, like I always tell you, thank you. Please be safe out there. And one day, this will not be an issue, right? We'll get it done. Thank you.
My name is Christina Bieber. This is my son Demetrio and my daughter Jessica. This is the first event that I have spoke at, and I wasn't planning on it, so I'm just gonna try to wing it the best that I can. My daughter Mia Howard died at the hands of a drunk driver on September 22nd, 2021. It was a regular day. She had just started her senior year, and that day she had gone with her friend and her cousin to get her, look at homecoming dresses and shoes and just the regular teenage 12th grader, back to school after COVID, enjoying life, getting back to normal. And she came home with her cousin Faith. She was grabbing a few things, asked me to paint her nails, which I did, and she left the house about 8:15, 20 after 8, to drop Faith off. And 15 minutes later, she was gone. The man that murdered Mia had maybe been 2 miles away from where he left. He was going 68 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone, crossed over a left turn lane, and hit Mia head on with her and Faith in the car. Faith was able to walk away from this accident, but is left with the scars of her best friend and her cousin and her soulmate, not only being gone, but watched her take her last breath. As a result of this, I have 2 grandchildren. My daughter has 2 children. Mia, the love that she has for her family, for the community, for the rights of others. She did very well in school. She had big dreams, big hopes. This picture here was taken 2 months before her accident, and that's the day she got her driver's license. I use this for everything that I do to support MADD and bringing awareness to drinking and driving. We knew soon after this happened that we had to do something. We had to make a difference. Mia has to make a difference. There's no words to even describe the devastation and the trauma, and the world that I knew was destroyed the moment I got the phone call about what happened to Mia. And what follows, to imagine going to a Wayne County Coroner's office to ID your child, to have to figure out what kind of clothes you're going to put on them as they lay in a casket, to pick where you're going to put them at rest. There are no words, and I will do anything in my power to bring as much awareness that I can, that this does not happen to another family, friends, or community. It is absolutely 100% preventable. Mia should be here. I can't change what happened to her, but I can carry on her purpose in this world. She had a huge purpose, and that's why we stand here. That's why we are here, and we will be standing anywhere and everywhere to share her story and to try to make a difference. I will say that the man that murdered Mia did get second-degree murder. I had to work very hard, probably not very liked by many people at Wayne County Prosecuting Office, but I was able to get the second-degree murder to hold. For me, it's not about the amount of time that this person receives. It's about accountability. This is where it starts, when we all, drinking and driving is not just a choice, it's against the law. And when people really start to realize this, maybe there will be more change in how we think or how we process getting behind the wheel of a car, or allowing someone that we know to get behind a wheel of a car knowing they shouldn't be. This is about accountability. And I can only hope that one day I can move towards people who are offenders, that they tell their stories and stand with me and make that difference as well. That's what I would like to see. Him sitting in jail does nothing for me. Nothing. Him having a second-degree murder charge does, because every day that he is breathing, he is going to be a convicted murderer of my daughter, Mia. And I just hope that in the future there are more things that can be put into place and more awareness that people just take accountability for their thoughts. Be more thoughtful, be more aware, and aware of others and the potential that it can create, the devastation. I do want to thank all of you here and for the job you do. I can't imagine what it's like, and thank you so much for all that you do for your cities, your communities, and for being here to help bring awareness. Thank you.
My name is Jason. I am not only a victim of drunk driving, I'm the MADD Advisory Board Chair. And first of all, I want to say Mia, or Christina, we need more people with the strength that you have to fight, to call the courts every day, to go there, to stand there. We need more people like that. Thank you. And so those of you who don't know, in 12 days will be the 43rd anniversary of me losing my entire family. So on the day after Thanksgiving, we went to pick my father up in Muskegon. And so my stepmother threw me and my two brothers in the car and drove up to Muskegon, picked up my father, and on the way back, Peter Zuder, with a blood alcohol level of 0.328 and cocaine in his system, crossed the center line and hit us at 108 miles an hour, head on, killing my family instantly. So I made it after several years, after several decades, being able to stand up and actually tell my story, I've made it my life mission to do whatever I can and speak with the loudest voice I can to see a change, to be part of the change, and to help with the change. Because we need to all speak with one voice when it comes to impaired driving of any type. But a couple of the statistics in 2021, 4,364 people were injured in drunk driving crashes. 1,257 due to drug-involved crashes and 933 due to alcohol and drug-involved crashes, totaling 6,554 unnecessary injuries, preventable injuries. In 2022, 4,447 people were injured in drunk driving crashes. I think I jumped one. Involved in 931 due to alcohol and drug-involved crashes. That's a total of 12,881 lives that have been injured within a 2-year period. 2 years, 12,000 people injured. That's too many. One is too many. In 2021, 505 people were killed due to someone being under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or both. In 2022, 454 people were killed to someone being under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or both. That's a total of 959 innocent lives changed forever. And that's only the people who are directly involved. The domino effect goes on forever. Trust me, I know. It's been 43 years since I lost my family, and I still open my eyes every day, and that's the first thought I have, and I close my eyes every night, and that's the first thought I have. That is what my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, friends of my family, it goes on and on. All of the people Mia went to school with, all of her friends, all of Brooke's friends, all of Taylor's friends. It goes on and on. We need to work together. We need to speak as one voice and come together and make that happen. So these injuries and fatalities are 100% preventable. Call a friend, call a family member. It says call Uber and Lyft. Yes, call Uber and Lyft. We are running into issues with Uber and Lyft not wanting to pick up intoxicated people due to, they're afraid. So use your family, because I can guarantee you at some point in all of your lives standing in this room and all of the lives of everybody around, somebody has said, if you get in trouble, call me. Call them. Because it's much easier to ride home getting yelled at than to call and say, I'm in jail for killing someone, or I'm in jail for injuring someone, or pick me up from the hospital because I crashed my car. So I will continue to fight, I will continue to work, and do everything I can, say everything I can to make sure this stops. Today we're here to tie one on, for the most part, or The tie went on for safety. So the red ribbons that you guys are going to tie onto your cars, which I have here, and she gave me one to bring up. I don't know if you dropped it. But you will get it because you guys are the first person to see that on the road when you guys pull somebody over for intoxicated driving. Here we go. She gave me one and I don't know what I did with it. So when you tie these on, these are not only for you to remember, but it's for whoever sees these tied around your car to stop and think. We've been doing the tie one on for quite some time, so by just identifying these, sometimes all it takes is a glance for somebody to make a better decision. So I want to thank you guys because it was the Michigan State Police along with Butterworth Hospital, which is now DeVos Medical Center, that allowed me to get to and from my family's funerals back then while I was in traction. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to say goodbye to my family. 2 different ones. And so I thank you personally for all of the hard work and putting yourselves in front of this issue because it starts with you on the roads.
Good morning. One of the things that I did when I took office is try to return good common sense discretion to our assistant prosecutors to make decisions about cases when they are prosecuting them. Because when we write a charge, when we bring a charge, that's the moment where we know the least amount of information about victims of crime, what actually happened, what information about the defendant. So many of these preventable injuries and deaths, a big part of prevention is what happens in the district court when someone's charged actually with a misdemeanor. And the reason I'm bringing this up is we feel strongly that prosecutors should be able to use their good common sense in terms of resolving a case if that's necessary. But there are absolute exceptions, and drunk driving is one of them. I want to recognize today that people from my office, Justin Davis, many of the officers in here know Justin, he's been around for a really long time. And then we have next to him Jad Harajli, who he is actually a district court prosecutor in, you were Farmington, but did you get moved? Still Farmington, a place actually I started out as an assistant prosecutor, I trained there. And what I said to him before I walked up was, we need to bring this into our office so that all of our assistant prosecutors are listening to what happens when you decide to maybe reduce a case on a misdemeanor, a first offense, or even a second. It's not just about, a defense attorney urging you to do it. These are, and it's not even what happened right then. It's what it could prevent later. So we do try to address the underlying reasons. If it is an alcoholism, if there's a substance abuse issue, we do want to provide that to people who deserve it, because we know, and all of you know, that could prevent a later crime or injury or death. But we also know that when you look at a driver, and you all know this, there are a lot of things that give you a very good insight into this isn't somebody that needs or deserves any kind of deal whatsoever. And these horrific stories are the cases we end up in circuit court and charging homicide cases, and they're terrible. But what I wanted to let you all know is that our focus is really trying to get our district court prosecutors, because most of these cases, somebody had a prior drunk driving case, and it was a misdemeanor. So I firmly believe, I'm happy to be here, and I will continue to be here because I think it's so important. But what I want to promise you today is that we're going to make sure the other assistant prosecutors who are in those courts every day talking to police officers, victims, and defense attorneys and judges, that what they do in that moment could very well prevent or protect somebody or prevent somebody being killed. And I couldn't really even come to that without sitting and listening to these stories. And as you all know, we deal with a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, but I think there is something unique about this type of loss, because your daughter left and she wasn't going into a dangerous situation. You know, as a mom, we get worried about our kids, but not when they go to drop somebody off. And there's really no way to protect them from that, right? We can say they can't go to certain things that we know are inherently dangerous, but she was just going to drop her cousin off. And for that reason, I think these are especially jarring to reckon with. And I want you to know that I'm going to do everything in my power to do exactly what you want and what I would want as a mom, and that is to make sure that no one ever forgets and that loss it means something. And so I would love it if you come to our office and talk to our assistant prosecutors, because we really, as painful as it is, we need to sit and share that and understand what happens. So I'm going to make that promise to you, and I also want to let you know that you're making your daughter proud. Thank you very much.
I'm going to have all of our law enforcement officers that have a cruiser here on the back table to please grab a red ribbon. We'll proceed outside and we'll tie the ribbon onto our cruiser, and then M1 is going to facilitate us doing that lap of solidarity. It would be remiss if I didn't thank M1 as our gracious hosts, Dan and Bruce, Mr. McGrain. They make this happen, and they have opened their doors, and they basically gave me a blank email that said anything you need. So I know many of you were here last year when it snowed. They were gracious enough to let us have this beautiful space inside so we could stay warm, and then open their track to us. So thank you all. The ribbons are on the back table there. Grab one on your way out. When you get outside, please wait, and we will tie that on all together. Thank you.